A constitution bench led by Chief Justice of India Anand Grover on July 11 decided to commence hearing the Ayodhya title dispute appeals from July 25 if the mediation committee gives the word. The talks with Hindu and Muslim parties to heal minds and hearts are not working. The bench asked Justice, retired F. Mazari Kalifullah, who heads the Supreme Court-appointed mediation committee, to submit a report on the progress made in the Ayodhya dispute mediation by July 18. The court added that if Justice Kalifullah, on behalf of the committee, concluded there was no reason to continue with the mediation, the Constitution bench would commence hearing the cross appeals from July 25. The court's order to seek a progress report from the committee in a way jump-starts the case's panel was earlier given time till August 15 to engage in talks with the parties for an amicable settlement to heal hearts and minds. The immediate trigger for the July 11 hearing is an urgent plea made by a claimant to the disputed Ranjanbhoomi Babri Masjid land that the mediation proceedings were making no headway whatsoever. The committee is in the thick of its second round of talks. It finished the initial round and filed an interim status report dated May 7 in the Supreme Court, successfully seeking more time from it. Ayodhya title dispute. Who are the mediators appointed by the Supreme Court? On July 9, however, Rajendra Singh, survivor of Gopal Singh Visharad, an original claimant to the dispute who filed a title suit way back in 1950, said the mediation was making no headway. He asked the CJI to stop mediation and start adjudication on the appeals pending since the past 8 years in the Supreme Court. Mr. Singh said he is entitled to offer worship without any obstruction according to the rites and tenets of his religion at the birthplace of Lord Sri Ramchandra. He said not much progress had been made by the panel, including former Supreme Court Judge Justice Kalifullah, spiritual leader Sri Ravi Shankar and senior advocate Sri Ram Panchu, a pioneer in alternative dispute resolution mechanisms in the country. Senior advocate K. Parasaran, for Mr. Singh, said it was difficult to settle disputes like this and the Supreme Court should authoritatively decide the matter. The suit was filed in 1950, even before the Constitution came into existence. 69 years have passed since. Mr. Parasaran submitted, highlighting the supposed futility of efforts to settle the dispute. Countering this, senior advocate Rajiv Dhawan, for the Muslim appellants, questioned the purpose of the application filed by Mr. Singh. This is just to intimidate us. Very serious mediation is going on. This application, Mr. Singh's, should have ideally asked the court to direct the mediation committee for a status report. Instead, it wants the court to entirely scrap the mediation process. Unhappy parties like them want to scrap the mediation efforts. Mr. Dhawan submitted. To this, the CJI said since the court had constituted the mediation panel, the court itself would ask the committee for a report. We are entitled to know what is happening. Justice Gogoi addressed Mr. Dhawan. Justice Kalifullah has been asked to detail the progress made so far in the stage at which the mediation is currently in. The bench had sent the Ayodhya dispute for mediation on March 8. It had given the panel an initial deadline of 8 weeks. The 8 weeks was the time given to the Muslim parties to examine the accuracy and relevance of the Uttar Pradesh government's official translation of thousands of pages of oral depositions and exhibits in the Ayodhya title suit appeals pending since 2010 in the Supreme Court. The committee has already held several rounds of mediation with stakeholders in Faizabad district in Uttar Pradesh, of which the disputed area in Ayodhya is a part of. The CJI had expressed hope that mediation may spell a peaceful end to the volatile dispute between the members of the two religious faiths. The court had pushed for a possible out-of-court settlement despite objections raised by some Hindu parties that their faith in Lord Ram's birthplace was non-negotiable. The bench had explained that the Ranjan Bhumi Babri Masjid case is not about the 1,500 square ft of disputed land, but about religious sentiments. We know its impact on public sentiment, on body politic. We are looking at minds, hearts and healing if possible. Karnataka political crisis echoed in Rajya Sabha, forcing adjournments for the past 2 days. The upper house is expected to continue its discussion on the general budget on Thursday. The Lok Sabha, which is of late working extra hours, will take up discussion and voting on demands for grants under the control of the Ministry of Railways for 2019-20. Here are the live updates. Prasanna Acharya, BJD, questions the curtailing the MGNREGA funds. When there is a drought-like situation in different states, the government should be allocating more to the scheme in such a situation, he says. Mr. Acharya says that the biggest problem in the country is unemployment. It is the highest in the last 45 years and yet it has not been addressed adequately, he says. Sukhbindu Shekhar Roy, TMC, says that the budget does not raise the hopes of the unemployed youth of the country nor the pensioners. Mr. Rory says that the finance minister had halwa at the printing of the budget at the finance ministry. Some of that halwa should have been given to the common people through the budget. Sukhbindu Shekhar Roy of the Trinamool Congress says that total tax revenues were lower than the revised estimates. Sunil Kumar Singh of the BJP says that his party fulfills promises. Unlike the opposition, he says the government plans in advance and in detail. Ravi Prakash Verma of the SP says that the caste system locks people into jobs. He cites the Prime Minister washing the feet of manual scavengers. R. Vatilingam of the AIADMK says the government needs to waive farm loans. He wants the government to set up the Pumpulha port. Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary says that the government does not care about farmers. He lists the government's promises which it has not fulfilled from the previous union budget. He says that the government is not concentrating on railways either. He says the growth of the railways revenue from its core business of running freight and passenger trains is declining. Continuing his speech on the budget, P. Chidambaram, Inc., says despite having inherited a strong mandate, the government has not taken bold enough steps to address various issues in the budget. While loans worth 55,603 crore have been written off for corporates, the same has not been done for farmers, micro-industries, small industries, says Mr. Chidambaram on the question of the $5 trillion economy by 2020 to 25. Mr. Chidambaram says that the rate of the economy will continue to double every 5 or 6 years as long as the growth rate is 11% or 12%. It is the magic of compounding, he says, and any moneylender will be able to explain the same. Instead, bold structural reforms is needed because the economy is weak, he says. MP Virendra Kumar says the 10% custom duty slapped on newsprint must be rolled back. The highest ever custom duty slapped on newspapers. It comes at a time when the print media is already reeling under factors like the lack of funds, he says. Rahul Gandhi, Inc., Wayanad, Kerala, takes up the issue of farmers' suicide and says that bank notices issued to farmers for non-payment of loans has worsened the situation. He says that the central government has refused to pass the moratorium formulated by the Kerala GOVT to the RBI. He also claims that there are no concrete steps taken in the budget to relieve the farmers of their debts and the commitments made by Prime Minister Narendra Modi have gone unfulfilled. Rajnath Singh replies by saying that the pressure on the farmers is not recent and is a product of the failures of the governments that came before the BJP government. He points to the increase of the minimum support price for farmers in the announcement and implementation of the Kisan Samman Nidhi Yojana, whereby the farmers have received Rs. 6,000 He says that an internal report has indicated that this has led to a 20 to 25% increase in the income of the farmers. He says that the government is committed to removing the plight of the farmers and more will be done. P. Chidambaram, Inc. says he condemns the political crisis taking place in Karnataka and Goa because of the damaging effect it has on the democracy. Addressing the parliament in Tamil, Mr. Chidambaram quotes the Tamil poet Bharatiyar and congratulates the finance minister for becoming the first woman to chair that position. Commenting on the budget, he says the calculation of the GDP for the year that went by is different in the economic survey and the budget document. Moreover, according to the budget document, growth projection is set at 8%, while the economic survey says 7%. There is no unified picture of the growth rate from the government, he says. Mr. Chidambaram says that the budget document mentions structural reforms, but for structural reforms, disruption is required, he says, pointing out that there is no mention of what these structural reforms are in the budget. Answering questions on the sale of Air India and decline of domestic civil aviation market, Hardeep Singh Mose, Ind. Civil Aviation, says that it is only a narrative that the domestic civil aviation market is declining. He says that it has seen a steady annual growth of 17%. Contrary to thick speculation, the number of flights haven't gone down either, he adds. Mr. Singh says that the other carriers have picked up business even after the closing down of Jet Airways. He acknowledges that most of the air companies are facing difficulties due to variables like aviation turbine fuel, ATF, 28 to 30% VAT levied on the companies, crude oil and currency fluctuations. He says that Air India's unsustainable debt burden was its downfall, for which the government is not at fault. It is for the benefit of the Indian citizens that the government has decided to privatize it. The government will do its best to ensure that the company is purchased by an Indian entity so that the citizens' best interests are protected. As the discussion on the budget continues, D. Raja, CPI, says that the government is dismantling the economy by the dismantling of PSUs that are fundamental to the economy. He says that the government talks about the alleviation of poverty, but the allocation of funds for schemes like the MNREGA and the welfare of women, children, SC/ST students says otherwise. Anil Jain, BJP MP from Uttar Pradesh, in his maiden speech, says the Prime Minister has made sure that some plan for the poor was introduced every 15 days. Unlike the previous government where every 15 days saw the development of a new scam. He is interrupted as MPs say that he has taken the name of a party in Parliament. The chair intervenes and asks Mr. Jain to continue. Hibiden, Inc., Ernakulam, Kerala, asks about sources of water and desalination plants to rectify the water problems in specific districts. Gajendra Singh Shekhawat, Minister, Jal Shakti, responds by saying that out of the 6,881 blocks where groundwater is assessed, about 1160 face scarcity. About 1,300 are categorized as semi-critical and critical. He agrees that desalination plants might be the way forward but points to the barrier of electricity costs. He says that the ministry is looking for alternative sources of power such as captive power generation in Gujarat, which might help eliminate the problem. Rajya Sabha decides to take up discussion on budget. Anand Sharma seeks intervention. He accuses the BJP of buying MLAs in states where they are not in power. This is an assault on democracy, he says. Prakash Javadekar strongly objects to it. Your party doesn't have a chief. How can you blame the BJP, he asks. The chair intervenes. He notes how the House was functioning smoothly, but for the past couple of days the House had to be adjourned. In politics, developments take place. We have to think of development of the country. I can only order a member to go back to his seat. I can't ask anyone to go back to his party, Mr. Naidu says. Anil Desai continues to speak on budget. A YSRCP member asks about 6-laning of Vijayawada bypass. The speaker points out he had sought permission to ask about roads in Chhattisgarh. The member points out the road is useful for Chhattisgarh also. If the minister can answer, let him answer, the speaker says amid chuckles in the House. Road Minister Nitin Gadkari asks the member to meet him in person to discuss the issue. Both houses assemble. Speaker Om Birla is in the chair in Lok Sabha, where question hour is taken up. Vice President Mr. Venkaiah Naidu is chairing the proceedings in Rajya Sabha. Papers are being laid on the table. The Congress members and non-Congress opposition members separately held protests condemning the BJP government in what they call the ruling party's undemocratic means to usurp power. Congress MP Kodi Kunil Suresh has given adjournment motion notice in Lok Sabha over the political situation in Goa. 10 MLAs from Congress joined the BJP on Wednesday, reducing the opposition party's strength to 5 in the Goa Assembly. The Central Bureau of Investigation on July 11 conducted searches in Delhi and Mumbai in connection with the case of alleged Foreign Contribution Regulation Act (FCRA) violation against the Lawyers Collective (LC), its president Anand Grover and others. In Delhi's Nizamuddin East, the searches were also carried out on the official and residential premises of Mr. Grover's wife and senior advocate Indira Jaising. The case was registered last month on the Union Home Ministry's complaint. The CBI has also invoked Indian Penal Code provisions related to criminal conspiracy, criminal breach of trust and cheating, besides criminal misconduct under the Prevention of Corruption Act. The LC, earlier registered under FCRA, had received more than 32 crore in foreign donations between 2006 and 2015. The firm mentions that after prima facie alleged violations were noticed, the ministry got on-site inspection done in January 2016 and sought explanations. Not satisfied with replies, it cancelled the registration in November 2016. The inspection report, which is part of the FAR, lists alleged violations on 14 counts. They include alleged participation in political activities, diversion or misuse of foreign contributions, and their use on air travels and other activities for draft legislation meetings, dharnas and advocacy with MPs. With respect to draft legislation on HIV/AIDS bill, documents also reveal that funds were spent on media advocacy with 67 MPs in March and April 2010, and 99 MPs in August 2010, alleges the FAR. Another charge against the LC is of receiving foreign funds specifically meant for Mr. Grover. As the then United Nations Special Rapporteur on Right to Health, the FAR alleges that he appeared in Novartis case in the Supreme Court by spending foreign contribution. Funds were also spent on air travel and other expenses for employees, workers of other organizations, and foreigners to attend conferences in Kathmandu, Malaysia, Kenya, Vienna, Austria Mission, USA Consultation, Section 27 Conference, Moscow Consultation and Bangkok Meeting, as alleged. In a statement, after the CBI registered the FAR, the organization and its trustees, including founding members Mr. Grover and Ms. Jaising, had expressed outrage, alleging that it had no basis in fact and in law. It has been filed to target the organization and its office bearers to silence them for the cases and issues that they have taken up in the past and continue to take up since 2016. LC, Lawyers Collective, is seeking competent advice and will defend themselves in accordance with law in every forum, it said. The organization also raised questions on the almost 3 years delay in filing of the FAR.